What's good, y'all? It's your boy Jarod and your girl Gabby. We are back with another episode of the Kicks and Shit Show. Bah, 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 bah. See, I like it. You have the now. It's like we're in a groove. I start it, and then once I'm done, it's trailing off. You pick it up at the end. It's nice.
Because
Teamwork.
I'm a poser. Shooter, Jarod, you know? Jarod, what's going on in these streets?
You see, I knew you were gonna you were waiting for that quiet moment to jump in there and be like, I'm gonna get it first this time. It's like I can see the machinations working behind your head. It's like the smoke coming out of your ears, the gears running.
Absolutely, the gears are turning.
Going well in these streets. It's already mid-January. Good God, can you believe it? It's like, I said this to someone many, many years ago. You remember when we were younger, how you would always identify and mark time off with whatever was happening at school, right? So when you're in elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever, you were always looking at calendar breaks, right? Christmas break, spring break, all that stuff. College, somewhat similar. You have the summer, all that stuff. And I said to somebody, look, here's the thing. The minute you leave school and you go to work, time speeds up like a mother. Because there's no more breaks. It's just constant, right? You're on the hamster wheel now and it never ends. And I just feel this is it, right? It was literally just Christmas. I felt like a couple days ago. And no, we're mid-January already.
It absolutely was. And I agree with that. I think time, especially with routine, every day is the same. We are prisoners of time, Jarod. Productive prisoners marching slowly forward on the hamster wheel of life. And, I think that's why it's important to set milestones and timing for yourself to break up that. I mean, now we look forward to the 3-day weekends in the corporate world, right? And it's that time after President's Day until May when there are no long weekends.
No breaks.
It feels like purgatory. And then after that, you're like, all right, well, we have summer Fridays and certain days off.
Right.
Now we're outside. It's warm. So the monotony just feels a little bit better because we're a little less productive because we just want to be outside.
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
then come September, it's Labor Day. Then we have, there's
Halloween.
the Jewish
holidays first, of course. Yes.
We have the Jewish holidays. We also have, Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. I stand corrected.
No doubt.
And, then there's Thanksgiving and then there's Christmas and then it's farewell year, and I think it's crazy how these couple months coming up are going to feel like a long time. And, I think I said this a little bit last week. I think, we were all a little bit expecting and hopeful that we were all going to turn into pumpkins at midnight and that 2021 was going to be this beautiful oasis that we've all been looking for.
Newsflash.
It's exactly newsflash. It is no surprise to me that not only is 2021
an extension of 2020.
The sequel's never as good as the original. It's always so, duh, everybody, let's manage expectations. But also, if you look at it, I saw a meme that really spoke to me.
Yeah.
The number 2021 is literally saying that the year 2020 won.
Oh, I like it. I like it. See?
I mean, I like it, but I don't like it because that means this year's going to be trash. But
no,
okay.
I like where your mind's at. So, I mean, given that meme explanation you just gave me, what's going on in those streets?
I don't know. No pressure, no diamonds, Jarod. That's how I'm living 2021.
No pressure. It is true. No pressure, no diamonds. You ever see, I think it was maybe an episode of DuckTales or something like that, where they had to make diamonds or something, and they had all the coal, and they were like, crap, how do we get the coal to turn to diamonds? And they put all these peanuts on the ground so the elephants could step on them to turn them into diamonds.
I don't remember that episode, but weirdly enough, I had a conversation about DuckTales earlier this week.
Interesting.
There was a Darkwing, you know me, I love a good GIF, so I used a Darkwing Duck GIF that just spoke to me and it felt right in the moment. And I said, you know what? I really wish, though, that this was DuckTales, the far superior cartoon of the ducks from the 90s.
Yes, agreed.
And that theme song.
DuckTales, ooh. Yeah, no doubt.
Ooh is right,
no
Rod.
doubt, no doubt.
It's like a catchy beat. I almost want to start playing it now. That hook gets in your head forever.
Wait, how about the fact that Scrooge got a money bin? I'm like, homeboy, you're diving into a pile of coins. I don't think that's how that works, my guy.
I also love that that's the piece of realism that you're looking for, Jarod, when there are a bunch of ducks that aren't wearing pants, that are only clothed from the waist up, that are fighting crime and talking to each other. But it's the fact that he is diving into gold, which is uncomfortable in his money room that is non-existent. That's the part that bothers you?
Listen. You gotta it's just the one part that I'm like, I get it. They don't have like certain things out, so top up is fine.
Yeah. I could see you watching cartoons at home being like, Mom and Dad, like, this part's not realistic. Like, it would hurt to dive into a pool of money. I don't think Aladdin thought of that either, by the way, or Abu. Like, when they dove into the jewels and treasure.
Yeah, definitely not.
The cartoon universe is very different than us.
Or diving into a pit of diamonds. You're going to get cut up, man. Diamonds are sharp. Like,
they are sharp.
You know what I mean?
Remember that, man. Diamonds are sharp.
Anyway, that ends the cartoon portion of this program.
Back to reality.
But Gabby, it has been an interesting week in the sports landscape. Obviously, of course, it's NFL playoffs and all that's going on. But the New York City basketball scene was sort of put on its head. And there you go. Have your New York Knicks that you're rocking right there.
I have to rock this. When
no
we
doubt.
Talk New York basketball.
No doubt. However,
they've been for every episode that we talk about New York basketball.
They've been in a bit of a slide recently, so I'm feeling a little funny about my prediction that no problem, you'll get that 10 spot and you'll make that play-in tournament. No, I'm like, but be that as it may.
I mean, I knew you were going to say that today, so I always prepared a rebuttal for that. The Knicks that we're seeing right now, they're tired, but this is what we're used to. This is nothing new. I don't know why all of a sudden we win a couple games in a row and now we're surprised.
Well, for me, as a non-Knicks fan, what I was looking for was Tom Thibodeau actually getting your team to play better than they have been playing, which they have been very clearly, right? Like, and there's effort levels are giving, and it's just a different culture of accountability. And I thought, and it did rightfully so, lead to wins that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten. But what you're starting to see, though, is like still there's a talent gap, right, with the Knicks and like some of the other teams. Yes, Julius Randle's playing well, but it's like, look, man, Emmanuel Quickley's nice, RJ Barrett, well, whatever, Kevin Knox, but it's like when you're going up against Giannis Antetokounmpo and like Chris Middleton and some of these squads with like top end talent, or the Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, it's like, all right, the gap in talent's still pretty wide.
I don't disagree with you, but again, why are we surprised by this? We know what we have. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that people are so shocked by this is shocking to me, Jarod.
I'm not shocked. No, I'm not shocked.
I think you said this last week. You're like, all right, go ahead. I'm going to let you finish. Mm-hmm. Is that the Knicks, you hope that Thibodeau doesn't overplay them, that they're going to be tired, which is part of it, right? Yeah. And also that, we're seeing progress.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And those are the pieces that I continue to focus on, because I agree with you. We were plagued with injury, and I think the amount of minutes that players that are not used to that on any team like the super teams that you described would be a bench player are playing LeBron James minutes. Why are we have to be realistic about this.
Manage expectations.
And focus on the big picture. Like the fact that we have a slump, sure, right? Like, and that's the thing that's so, like, this is why I always say when Knicks basketball is good, the NBA is better, because we were all in it for the 5-game win streak, 5 games. But I also think your point of saying that, like, in addition to injury and players playing more minutes than they normally would, it also is coupled onto another thing you said last week that I think is spot on about the season being a bit crazy. Like, when is there time for rest? When is there time for practice?
No time for rest.
There's not really. And I think we're feeling that as an extra bit. And we saw that a little bit this summer with the bubble, with other teams, the teams that tried to rest when they could. And because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I think it's early enough in the season. And I know we came out sprinting, which I'm here for the energy and I love that. Yeah. But we do have to remember that there's a lot of miles we have to get through before we even get to any playoff conversation.
No doubt. And I was sort of tongue in cheek being like, I don't know if they're going to get that 10 spot. That's still obviously very much well in play. It's early. But it is, as I've said numerous times, 17 games in 31 days, right? You're playing every other night. That's a lot, right? There is no time for recovery. But what I'm seeing is, and maybe the Knicks will benefit from this, like some of the other teams, a lot of these players are being pulled into the health and safety protocol, and it's canceling games. Now, of course, or postponing, I should say. Now, we don't want that, and we don't want that to be the reason, but that's kind of like a built-in rest, right? If you're in a stretch where you got to play the Wizards and then the Suns or whatever, you're not going to play those games. So, you might end up getting 3, 4, 5 days of like non-game action, which could be beneficial to help you on the back end. But be that as it may, that isn't the reason why I brought up New York basketball. I brought up New York basketball because the Brooklyn Nets have decided we are putting all our poker chips in the middle of the table. They said, all in, baby. Hey,
good sound effect, Rod. That was nice.
You like that?
That was very smooth.
It was all the chips, and they just slid them right into the middle. And they say, look, we want to maximize this window, and we are going all the way in on winning this title. And, it is quite interesting. It's going to be really something to see how it all plays out and develops and just everything that goes along with it. But when you heard the news as a Knicks fan, what were your thoughts?
So many thoughts. So I agree with you. I think they definitely put all their chips in the middle, but I think it's someone like me who's playing poker at like the World Series of Poker. That's the problem, right? Is that like, I'm going all in on a hand that I don't know if I'm going to win that hand. That's how I feel about it. And, KD and Harden have played together before, so there's that history. Kyrie's still a rogue factor. And what we've talked about before on other episodes is that I'm not sure who the leader of that team is right now. And I think KD has stepped up in terms of him and Kyrie, but you see teams that have the talent that should be a lot better than they are. Exhibit A, the Clippers during the playoffs. They should not have fallen flat like that. They have the talent, but because there's not a true leader, and I talk all the smack about LeBron, but the one thing that he does really well, I might not agree with how he does it, but he always emerges as a leader and the structure of the team. And that's why even players like Kyrie have come back and been like, listen, like I might not like how he operated, but that's the structure we needed, and has come back and eaten his words, because that is really important. And I think like you look at the Warriors, the leader of the team doesn't necessarily have to be the best player. Like Curry leads on the court, but Draymond Green leads in terms of being the voice and like championing and bringing everyone together, right? Like I think whatever that looks like for Brooklyn, they need to establish that. And to me, that's not clear cut. Right now, you got a lot of alpha talent that have a lot of opinions. And you know how I feel about players who are talkers. Sometimes they need to shut the beep up, because let your actions speak for yourself. Talk with your team, but talk isn't what's going to get you where you need to be. Like, I mean, name one player aside from LeBron who is a big talker who has had a lot of success in any league. Like,
yeah, so, I think the points you bring up are fair, right? And I think ultimately, like the Clippers, the Nets, they're because of the talent they have, and we talked about, when the Knicks play certain teams, that you see the talent gap. The Nets' overwhelming talent is going to win them a shit ton of games, okay? Yes. So they're going to be a high seed, go into the playoffs, but the playoffs and the pressure cooker of the playoffs will be the determining factor. And that is where that leadership role needs to be clearly defined. And if you are a Nets fan, what you hope is that throughout the course of the season, that gets ironed out and defined as they get on the court and start playing together, right? Like the basketball part of it, just from a strict X's and O's, good luck defending that team. Like literally good luck. But it's really about, again, in the playoffs, when it is time for, really, okay, here's what we're sticking to. Here's our game plan, right? Who's leading the example and how's everybody fitting in and adhering to their roles, right? And that's why you need someone to be the ultimate leader in that way, right? And so that'll be the thing that we won't be able to answer today, right? That's going to get answered over time, and we'll be able to see how is this developing. But when you're a team like Brooklyn, a lot of the talk and conversation I saw this week was about, oh my God, they've sacrificed their culture, and I'm like, look.
What culture? They're in Brooklyn. They've been trying to find their identity since they moved from Jersey.
Well, the big thing about culture, a lot of the fans was because they were looking at younger talent and building through the draft, and like with players like Karis LeVert and Jared Allen and Joe Harris, and doing and Spencer Dinwiddie, doing those kinds of things, right? It's like, okay, we're going to sort of build this homegrown talent and do what you have to do. Now, culture's all well and good, but when you have the opportunity to get alpha A+ talent, F that, all right? Because you ain't winning unless you have those kinds of talents, right? And then that will define what your culture is, right? Because look, as great as, the San Antonio Spurs culture is, and it's quite lauded, When were they winning? When they had Tim Duncan, one of the 10 greatest players of all time, right? Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker. So yeah, culture is culture, but you ain't winning unless you have super duper talent. That's just how this game works.
I agree with you, but I think that there needs to be a sweet spot in the middle because I do think culture is important too. Like, again, I use the example of the Clippers. They have a ton of talent and can't close the deal.
No doubt.
At least historically, they haven't been able to last season. And, from the games that they lost, if it were up to me, I would have said, Kyrie, just stay in Toronto and make another play for there. Like, you could
Kawhi,
be a two in a row. Kawhi. Who did I say?
Kyrie.
Kawhi. This is why I don't drink coffee, guys. I'm batting 1,000 today. But I think that culture, and I agree with you about the Nets culture. Obviously, I'm an emotional fan because all of us, our fan side is more emotional. And when the Nets left Jersey to go to Brooklyn, I felt a little bit betrayed, even though the Knicks are my real team. But the Nets are what I grew up going to, so it has that nostalgia for me. Funny. But I agree with you, and I think that's one thing that I really commend the Nets on, and I've said this even in terms of the Knicks, is that I hope we take a similar model to what Brooklyn did, where they cultivated talent. They were known for the young team, and they stack up when they need to. They show that they're a consistent playoff team. But to me, this is a little bit eerie in terms of reminding me of, there was a great culture with the Knicks before we brought Melo in, and then we brought in big talent, and it didn't work because the culture meant it translated on the court. There was a vibe on the court, and then when we got rid of some of that culture in lieu of big talent, it fell flat. We were winning more games. Melo had great stats. It was nothing against Melo. Melo did a great job and had amazing numbers. But because the culture piece was taken away, that's what I'm concerned about for Brooklyn right now, is that they've given up the culture for the circus. I don't know if they hired consultants from the Jets and that's what they're doing here to try to make it a media circus, because that's how it feels, right? Katie and Kyrie haven't gotten in a groove yet. Did they need to make a play for Harden right now? I don't think so.
Well,
I think they could have waited. I mean, who knows when Kyrie's coming back? There's talks about this week. We don't know, but let that groove happen first and then see where you can utilize Harden and if he is necessarily the right piece of talent. And, I could be wrong. They have their jobs for a reason, and there's a reason I'm not in those positions. They know things that I don't know. But
yeah, and it's always more layered than this. And I think, look, a lot of what you're saying is it's multifaceted and multi-layered, right? The goal of most teams is to win an NBA championship, right? However, that is extremely difficult to do. If you look at the course of the history of the NBA, 4 franchises have won 80% of all the titles. It's hard to win, okay? If you look at 538's projections right now, the Lakers are the title favorites. They have a 24% chance of winning, which means there's a 76% chance they don't win.
And that's the favorite, yeah.
And that's the favorite. The Nets are number 2 at an 18% chance to win the title. So, again, there's so many factors and things that go into play here. And so when you're looking at the Knicks and you're like, oh, we didn't win, and it's like, oh, you didn't, but honestly, it's fucking hard to win, man. It's really hard. What you hope as a franchise, if you're a fan that you root for, is that your team does whatever's possible to keep you in with a chance of making the playoffs every single season. And in those magical years where you drafted really well and you got that superstar or whatever, you make a run to maybe a conference finals. And if everything breaks right, and that's a lot of things, you go to an NBA finals. But the vast majority of players in this league will never play in an NBA finals. They just won't, just because of the nature of the numbers. Matter of fact, the majority of players won't even play in a conference finals because it's hard.
It's true.
It's just hard to do. So, when you're looking at teams, you're like, how do my team so bad? It's I get it, but if you're in the playoffs every year, it's if you're a fan of an Indiana Pacers, it's okay, we never won, but guess what? You're in the playoffs every year.
Is that better or worse, though? I have to ask, because I agree with everything that you're saying, which I know probably seems a little bit rare, but I agree with everything that you're talking about. But I don't know, is it worse to be a team with New York where you're as a Knicks fan, I know we're not winning the championship, or you're saying there's a chance and then it's consistent, but it's we can't close the deal?
See, for me, I would
love your thoughts.
I like the Indiana model because I'm getting a chance every year, right? I'm getting enough swings or enough at bats to do a cross sports analogy, right? The Knicks ain't even getting up to bat, all right? I'm at least getting up to bat every year. So one time in my lifetime, hopefully, I will get lucky and we'll have a magical run. If you ain't even getting up to the plate, you got zero chance. So at least I have that going for me. So I like the idea of every year we're making the playoffs and there's a chance.
I agree with that. I see what you're saying, but I don't know. I think a lot of these teams now we're in an NBA culture where they want the quick fix, right? It's like, and that is one thing I do respect about a team, like in an organization like Indy, that does realize the long game instead of it being like these flashy teams that you don't hear anything about, aside from, to your point, like the big franchises that are consistently there, like the Lakers. I mean, people were more shocked I'd say people were more shocked that the Lakers had 10 years off from being a good team.
That's what I'm saying.
But 10 years isn't even that long compared to some of these other teams. So,
but that's the idea, though, right? So, like, if you're one of these big market teams like the Knicks, right? It's like every year you guys are holding out hope that, okay, this is the year we sign that free agent. And it's like, it ain't never happening. Like,
we're holding out in the same way, though. I think, like, yes, in the Melo era, we definitely were holding out on hope. But I think, like, what we've learned is to not hold out and celebrate the small victories and build from there. At least that's how I feel as a Knicks fan. I can't speak for anybody else but myself, but
which is why, again, this is why the Indiana model, right? It's like, look, and part of it is market, right? Indiana knows they're not getting free agents because free agent players aren't saying, yes, let me go play in Indiana. They don't want to do that. That's fine. But what they've done is, okay, we have to draft really well, be smart about and they're just playing it smart. So the Knicks, what they should do is, as a franchise, even though you are New York in a big market, think as though you're a small market.
Think small,
right?
Yeah.
Think like you're a small market and build, because when you build and you do all those things, the big time free agents will go, hey, look what's going on in New York. They turned that ship around. I think I might want to go over there. That's how you do it. But
I agree. And I mean, I say that in different words about like taking the Brooklyn model where it's, the younger sister to the bigger team
think about
franchise. But I think Brooklyn was really smart in that sense where they took their time. They showed that, like, let's figure out, it's a level of self-awareness as an organization too. Like, what are we good at? What do we need? Let's build. Let's use this then as a recruiting tool. Like, it's okay that we're not going to win championships for a couple years.
That's fine.
But at least we're being consistent and building. And so that's where I'm hopeful for the Knicks and I know we're bringing it back to the Knicks away from Brooklyn, but that's like how I live my life. So, I think that there's hope.
The point there is, and we'll end it here. The point there is the Knicks, in fact, to your point, yes, should look at Brooklyn, because if Brooklyn didn't have those last couple of years of making the playoffs, showing the development of someone like a Joe Harris, a Karis LeVert, a Spencer Dinwiddie, and hearing, and star players on the league hearing how first class the Brooklyn organization is, there's no way Kyrie or Kevin Durant are signing there as free agents. They're not, right? So that sort of work got them attractive enough to be like, oh, we can go to that place, right? So yes, if you're the Knicks, just do that. Figure yourself out, build that up for a few years, then it's like, oh, they're actually not half bad. Then you're in the game. But, we'll see. We'll see if they do it.
I'm hopeful.
Listen, you must live in hope, because otherwise, yikes.
That's all there is.
I know last week with our guest transitioning, TJ Kiesel, who TJ was great. And if you guys haven't checked that episode, make sure you check it out. And of course, support her Talks with TJ on YouTube. She is a big Jerry Lorenzo fan and loves a lot of the Fear of God stuff. And I know you too. I wouldn't say I'm not. I've not been lucky enough to been able to cop any Fear of God merch, because, as you know, I'm like, so who out there has got any plugs and frees they want to send my way? Because
if you get a plug on Jerry Lorenzo, Jarod, and I don't get a phone call though, like I think this show is done. Saying it on the record, but I say that with such a bold claim because it's never going to happen.
Well, listen, stranger things.
Not anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, you never know. You know what? Manifest that shit, Jarod. I respect it. Go ahead. Go after your dreams.
Listen, I'm going to get that Fear of God plug. It's coming. I'm putting it out in the universe, and I feel it coming back to me right now.
By me, I hope you mean us, but okay.
But they do have some new merch dropping, and I know you want to talk about some of that and what maybe you're into, not into, what you want to spend $100 on or $90 on, whatever the price point is, somewhere around there, I imagine.
Yeah, so I was actually talking to TJ about this last night. as the Fear of God essentials with the knit collection in the hoodies, came out on Friday night of this past week. And, I do a lot of shopping.
I assume you didn't get any because I didn't get a note saying like, this is what I got.
Well, did you get a note the last time I got some?
Yeah, I think you did tell me.
Oh, well, either way, moot point. I don't know if I did. But anyway, I think I just showed you instead of told you.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that Fear of God has been positioned is very interesting, right? Like, and, the knit wasn't necessarily my favorite. And, if it's something that I'm not obsessed with, I'm going to back off because I think, like, the sneaker God, streetwear karma universe maybe someday will like throw me a bone if I let the people, like how you are with women's sneakers, right? Like the women's launches, you'll let the ladies have a chance. I want to let other people have a chance too. And I was actually talking to TJ, the launch, she said they keep restocking on Essence throughout the day, which I thought was very interesting. So I kept logging in and they were restocking like the taupe hoodie that was not in the knit lettering. And Essence is very funny because they create their own names for the colorways. When I was like, this is called light gray here and it's oatmeal heather as part of like the Fear of God merchandising. It just makes no sense. And I was like, if I had to be honest, it looks like it's off-white. Like it's like what color are the rabbit leather shoes that you have?
Faux rabbit leather? They're gray, but anyway.
Right. Sure. Potato. But it's like the stress. Once I saw that there was something that I wanted, I knew that they kept restocking.
Oh, boy.
Throughout the evening. I think TJ said it took her 7 hours to get the piece that she wanted. I mean, obviously not sitting there.
No, I know, but like,
yes. I checked over the course of hours, and I had because the pieces for me run a little bit big, and I like a little bit more of that slim fit, I had a small hoodie in my cart, and it said one left.
Oh, so you pulled that trigger.
Went to pull the trigger, and the trigger could not be pulled. But then when I went back to the site, it still said one left. So you know what I did? I'm like the mouse that's getting the sugar cube, right? Cleared my cart, went for the sugar again. Same thing happens. And I'm like, clearly this must be a mistake. Third time, went for the sugar cube. And then, I was like, this is why I'm on Whole30. I don't need sugar in my diet right now. I got to cut this shit. And I was not able to get it. And, I wasn't as bummed because this was kind of a little bit more of a surprise. And like TJ, I try to plan out the things that I try to get. So I respect that. And it was not my time, clearly. But damn, Jarod, let me tell you, I'm like, I just don't want us to get into a point where because there's so much hype around Fear of God.
Right. You can never get access.
Well, not even that. I mean, yes, that's one piece of it. But the main piece for me is that I just don't want it to be like turn into the Yeezy where it comes out in 50 different remixes of the same thing and it kind of loses
I'm
the
with you.
excitement for me, right? Like the hoodies with the knitwear, like I think that's a cool idea because I like that it's knit and it's a bit of a different way of logo treatment. But at the end of the day, are we going to see another logo treatment in a different material or colorway again? Because then, to me, that's taking the Yeezy model. And, the restocks throughout the day I think are great. It's making it more accessible. And I have no problem with accessibility. But at a certain point, when do we lose the spark?
I will say you're handling it very maturely, though. I thought you'd be a lot more upset. You're actually okay, I think, which is a good sign. There's always that emotional reaction though when you're like, damn, I'm gonna get it, and then you don't. You do feel a certain kind of way. So I understand that. But to your larger point, I'm with you about the exclusivity and the idea of, look, let's not have 78 million different like remixes of the same shit, because then it does lose some of its, some of the reasoning. Because let's be honest, like it's not that you're trying to be like, oh, here's what I have and you don't, but there is some sort of feeling that you have when you can get an exclusive piece, right? Like it's a nice sort of like feeling to have. So I'm with you on that. Totally get it.
I also think just like, here's my thing, and I love Jerry Lorenzo as well, and like my Essentials hoodie is amazing. I think it's great, and it was worth every penny. The structure of the hood itself, I know that sounds like a very strange thing. It's like no other hoodie that I own, and you guys know I own a lot of hoodies. Like that's my vibe.
Hashtag hoodie season.
I'm wearing hoodies with bike shorts as we speak. We got the heat on in the apartment today. Like I'm roasting in the sneaker closet, but. Yeah, if I'm nothing else, at least I'm consistent. But there's something about the style and the structure of it that I understand the price point. But, and this is my beef with Yeezy, because, and it's okay to change your model as you go, but just own it, right? It's like, are you trying to be the exclusive item, or are you trying to make it accessible for people to have it?
Yeah.
Because I think like Jerry Lorenzo could do it two different ways, right? One lane could be, let me do the exclusive drops, and then that's it. Like some of these smaller streetwear brands, like the hoodie that I wore last week that said Wild, it was an Uno partnership with Bobby Hundred's line, and that's it. Like, if I didn't get it, I didn't get it.
Right.
It's not like there's a remix version coming out with it. Sure, there's other collabs, but like, that's it. If I wanted the Knicks Kith collection, I would have to go to eBay or to StockX and get it from somewhere else, right? And that's it. And that's what adds to the cachet. But I'm curious to see what happens next with Jerry, because this new release, I think, is great. It's something that we haven't really seen. I'm here for it. But if it then starts to take shape of the Yeezy, it loses the exclusivity. And you know what? His line is called Essentials for a reason. They're essentials. Like, I totally get it if the direction he wants to go is making it something that everyone's rocking Jerry Lorenzo, because the pieces are comfortable. It's functional. He came out with this line at the perfect time, and it expresses who he is. Like, I respect it. I love it. But I want to know, which lane are we taking? Like right now, I feel like we're in the carpool lane debating if we want to stay or not, you know? Like, do we want to carpool?
But
do we just want to speed ahead?
To your point, you could always do both, right? You can do the just everyday remixes, that way everyone has access to it, and then have your exclusive line where it's like, nah, those are only coming out with no fanfare, and if you get it, you get it. You miss it, you miss it, right? You can definitely do that, and I think a lot of brands do that, and it's actually smart business, right? Because you want the exclusive drop so bad, but that other stuff is still pretty hot anyway, so I'm going to get that, right? So you still feel like you're part of something, right? Because that's ultimately what a lot of this is, right? It's people wanting to feel like
culture.
That they're part of it. Yeah, no doubt.
So that's where I'm curious to see if it's going to be something. Because I agree, like the pieces that were still on the virtual shelves, as one might say, that were the ones that did not say essentials in big letters, which I found interesting. I was looking at some of the other hoodies too. I mean, the one that I was looking at was in that oatmeal heather that basically was like an off-white color, you know, that it didn't say essentials across in big letters in the chest. And I was like, if they had that in my size, I would cop that, because I know the quality that I'm getting with the Jerry Lorenzo essentials item.
No doubt.
And so that's why I'm curious to see what's going to happen. And like, there's no hate, but I'm intrigued. I'll leave that there.
There's no
maybe
hate.
If it becomes more commonplace, or they have more of an essentials everyday line, maybe that's where you'll get your freebies.
Listen, I know I'm working on that exclusive. Don't you worry about that. All right, I'm working on that exclusive line. I'm setting my feelers out there. Don't you worry. I'm
more worried about your thoughts on the phrase "sharing is caring." That's where the real comes into play.
Now, is sharing caring, or is sharing with you caring? Is that where we're going?
Well, I mean, we're just talking you and me. This is like an AB conversation, so anyone can see the fuck out of here. So, yes.
I knew it.
And you know what, Jarod, this is what I love about us guys. Jarod and I keep each other in check. Like when I start to get a little too thirsty, Jarod will bring me back down to reality, be like, oh yeah, I'm going to share with everyone else in my building except for you. If you start talking like that, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I love it. It's good work.
Jarod, love you.
Listen, we are here to show people this is what a partnership looks like, people. This is how you make each other better. This is how we do it here on the Kicks and Shit Show. I know, and I think it's a good time to do this now, kind of transition to something a little more serious. Our episodes always come out on Mondays, right? And as you know, this Monday as it's dropping, is Martin Luther King Day. And I thought it was important to just, of course, honor arguably the greatest man this country's ever produced, right? Like just a phenomenal human in so many different ways. There's something interesting that goes on every year around this time, and it's what I like to call bad faith actors, right? People who are literally diametrically opposed to everything MLK stood for and what his legacy endures, using quotes of his to back up their own ridiculousness and reducing him to this cuddly grandpa, teddy bear kind of figure, because all they want to do is lead with nonviolence. And Bernice King, his daughter, every year does a really wonderful job of putting out a video of one of his most famous speeches. And, everybody can go on Twitter, find B.A. King, and that's who she is, Bernice King, and look up the video that I'm speaking of. And she said these words, and I thought they were so poignant. When you tweet about my father's legacy birthday and on MLK Day, remember that he was resolute about eradicating racism, poverty, and militarism, and believed that the church should lead in that work. We will be the participants in making it so, right? That's one of the quotes she used. And that she was speaking specifically to pastors and preachers. And she also said the same thing to politicians and influencers, right? Again, when you think out tweets, remember what my father was about, resolute about eradicating racism, poverty, and militarism. Encourage and enact policies that reflect your birthday sentiments, right? And I think that was just so poignant and powerful. Because again, these are the same people who, politicians in particular, who enact laws that are literally the opposite of anything MLK would ever want, right? And now you're trying to say, there's a plate, nonviolence and always do what's right. And I'm like, well, nothing you're doing is right. And nothing you're doing speaks to creating a world where violence is not the answer, right? All the things that a lot of these people are doing are suggesting more violence is what's needed. So again, I encourage people to go in their free time on this MLK Day, and really get, quote unquote, the measure of the man and look into really what he was about. I mean, at his time, this was a radical, right? Like, let's not be out here acting like, this is some different kind of thing. This is a radical human being in the sense of what the mainstream thought he wanted, which of course we know, obviously, nothing radical about wanting equality for everybody. Sounds like that's what everybody should want. But anyway, just wanted to put that out there.
I completely agree. And I think, it's interesting that you mentioned influencers as well as a piece of that, because I find that these moments in time, influencers capitalize on a quote, whether it's with their ideals that they agree with or don't, and we talk a lot about in the show, don't just talk about it, be about it.
No doubt.
And I find that a lot of people tend to use Dr. King's quotes
out of context.
out of context for one, but also, and I'm sure I've posted his quotes over the years, but it's not just about sharing a quote to be part of a conversation. It's about what you do in the rest of your time and the rest of your days. And I think, that's where this conversation to me is something that it shouldn't be as progressive of a thought as he was. And like however many years ago, Dr. King made that famous I Have a Dream speech, he was a radical then. And the fact that we still haven't seen enough progress and it's still relevant today speaks volumes about the progress that needs to happen as a country. And I said this at the beginning of the episode in a very different context. I very much believe no pressure, no diamonds. And I think right now we are in the pressure phase of our country. And it's naive to think that things are not going to get worse before they get better, but change and rainbows come from the storm. And we are in the storm. And it's going to be uncomfortable. And I hope people take time this weekend to really remember that it's okay to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's better to be uncomfortable and have those hard conversations, to look at those who you love and your family and your friends. And, everyone always thinks like, oh, I can't make a difference. I'm just one person. Look at the scale that one person made a difference, and we're
100%.
Still talking about it. And whether it's in your own circle, whether it's me and Jarod having this conversation on this show, to the guys that are listening and watching us now, or it's on a national scale. Mm-hmm. Don't just talk about it, be about it.
No doubt.
Use the platform that you have, however big or small, and incite the change that needs to happen. Mm-hmm. This country, the phrase, we truly do want to make America great, mm-hmm. but we want America to be authentic. And America is a place where we've always been able to pride ourselves on free speech and challenging those thoughts. So now more than ever, it's important to have the hard conversations to get us in a better place and give a voice for people who deserve to have a voice, who might not have the platform to do so. And for those who are in a position to add influence to that, make sure that you are speaking up for what's right.
Oh, 100%.
And even if it's a hard conversation, have the hard conversation. Your personal brand does not matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're worried about pissing off people by vocalizing
what's
the injustices
right
in this country and what's right, then are your followers really your followers? I mean, I would rather have one friend that understands that than 1,000 friends that don't. Yeah. And I hope that all of you take that time to have that lens. And that's something that I love about you, Jarod. You and I can always have authentic, real conversations. You guys were like this behind the scenes too. The real conversations, the joking conversations. When the ring light goes off and the camera stop rolling, this is exactly how we are.
Conversation.
So I hope that you take that everyone who's watching this, do what you can. Apply it beyond just this weekend. This weekend is a weekend to commemorate and honor, but it should be something that happens in your everyday.
No doubt. And just to reiterate on follow up on something you said and close this out, look, if everybody thinks, oh, what can I do? I'm just one person, then we're not going to get anywhere, right? Like, it isn't about, can I impact a billion people? No. If everyone does their one part and does their one little thing, then as a collective, we will all be better.
Yep.
Right? No one's looking for any one person to be, all right, I'm going to change the hearts and minds of hundreds of millions of people. No. You do you. I do me. Everybody does them. And guess what? We're a lot better off than we are. And not just, as you said, to focus on this weekend and today. Yes, honor, commemorate, but this should be what we're talking about and doing in our actions every day of our lives, right? Like that's how you make the world a better place. So I hope everyone, really, really takes that to heart and they're impacting and doing that in their day-to-day lives. Well, folks, that was a lot for today in our special, little mini episode. I think we'll do a lot more of this year, guys. We just as a team, there's a lot happening, right? We have a lot of different content we're trying to bring you, a lot of things going on in our other lives and other parts of our lives, right? We have lots of things that we do. We're multi-talented creators that do a lot of things. So, there'll be more of these little sort of snippets that we drop. And don't worry, we'll also have plenty of special, fantastic guests for you. So you always know where to find us. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Episodes drop every Monday. We are at Kicks and Shit Show on all the platforms on social media. I know. I keep talking about TikTok. Something will happen on TikTok this year. What? I don't know. But something.
I don't know. But I will say, Jarod, you know what? I like these snippets. And you guys, I want us... communicate with us.
Yes.
This is a community for a reason. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you want to see more of. I mean, personally, I'm a little sad we didn't do America's favorite segment, Shoe and Tell. So I have a speaker here ready to show just in case. I knew this moment might come. So I'll do a quick show and tell because, we'll talk more about mids. But I love the detailing on here, and we'll leave it at that. Be yourself. Yes. Live your life.
Yes.
Do right by people. Do right by yourself. And we'll be back for another episode next week.
Peace.